Every time I think I'm done talking about Russell Wilson, the podcasts pull me back in. And I swore to myself I wasn't going to talk about Russell Wilson in a video until he was traded, released, or he and the Broncos open mouth kissed and made up. I'm talking wet, sloppy, deep tongue kissing that would even gross out the French. But then he had to go on Brandon Marshall's podcast and talk about some stuff I think is relevant and important, like this.
I got that call that, hey, we're gonna bench you for the next 9 games if you don't change your injury guarantee. So yeah, I want to go back to Denver. I hope I get to go back.
And like this drivel.
Every day that God's given me breath, I gotta inspire somebody else because somebody else is struggling.
I'm struggling, Russ. I'm struggling watching the Broncos play. Give someone breath? Just give me 10 fucking wins, a wild card appearance. I'm done with these life lessons.
Showing the guy what Bible study looks like on a Saturday night. And
I just want a good quarterback, and today I'm gonna provide a very fair and honest critique of Russell Wilson the person, his strengths, his weaknesses, and how they were all revealed within this one podcast. That's good sports. Hey, subscribe here. Turn those notifications on. Also, if you want to support this channel, check out my coffee company, Benchwarmerbrew.com. We've got the Fuck the Refs blend of coffee. We've got my coffee. We've got a bunch of coffee. We got new mugs. We got a bunch of bullshit you don't need. So don't even fucking go there. Don't do it. Don't go to my coffee company. Don't do it. Who am I, a salesman? We here in Broncos country will have a Russell Wilson decision in the next 2 weeks, per Sean Payton at the NFL Combine.
Would anticipate it being within the next 2 weeks.
Considering the final day they have to make a decision is March 17th, I say no shit, Sean. Now, Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, they may be like oil and water, but I think Russ is willing to make it work with Sean.
You can play with Coach Payton again?
yeah.
That smile is Russ's way of saying, yeah, I'll work with that motherfucker, even though I know he tried to stab me in the back. I don't think Sean's willing to work with Russ.
I saw this humorous meme the other day where there was a Bronco fan with a shirt on and there was 8 quarterbacks' names with a cross through it, and he's drinking the quarterback Kool-Aid, and our job is to make sure that this next one doesn't have a line through it.
That's why he's going to be gone. Now, we all assume that Russell Wilson has already played his last snap in Denver, but we just don't know for sure yet, do we? And Wilson himself hasn't shut the door on not only a return, but a triumphant one.
I committed there. I committed to be there. I committed to win championship. I want to win more Super Bowls there. I love the city and everything else, but you also want to be a place that wants you too. So
he also said this.
I want them to keep climbing even when it's hard,
right?
When there's obstacles in front of them, and to keep jumping. And I think that's the key to climbing a mountain, and that's the journey I'm on right now.
And which state has all of the mountains? Colorado. They don't call it the Mile High City because the most people per capita lose their virginity on airplanes. With so much uncertainty surrounding his future with the Broncos, Russ expressed his apparent desire to keep riding in Denver.
Now, where I am today, as we sit here today, is getting my mind and my body and my spirit and everything ready to go back to Denver and win it all.
Yeah.
Right? If that's what I gotta do, let's go. Let's go do it. That's what I committed to, and that's what I'm ready for.
He said a lot of things on Marshall's podcast, though. I suggest go listen to the whole thing so you can have your own take on Russ. Everything Russ does, though, is calculated, except pass on time over the middle. So this pod dropping the week of the Combine, the week the Broncos said they will make a final effort to work it out with Wilson, is no coincidence. Smart move by Brandon Marshall to get this interview now, who I did an amazing video on last year. Brandon Marshall, Forgotten Beast, go check it. Now Russ may want to stick around, or at least say so he looks like the good guy. But it's ultimately not up to him. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler said this on SportsCenter. Everybody I've talked to around the league expects the Denver Broncos at some point around the new league year in the next few weeks to rip the Band-Aid off and release Russell Wilson, even though they owe him $39 million in guaranteed money. I do the best Fowler impression. Now, Fowler basically went on to say that because Russ will have that guaranteed money in hand, Wilson might be willing to take a salary closer to the vet minimum for a chance to start somewhere else. If Denver does release Russ before March 17th, they'll take on a record-setting $85 million in dead cap, which is a way of saying, this is how much we don't want you here, which again is literally my goal to achieve with ESPN one day. That is why I idolize Russell Wilson, for fleecing the ultra-rich to be super rich. Now, I was ultimately disappointed with this interview. Even though I thought Marshall did a great job giving Russ multiple chances to be relatable, something Russ seemed to skirt and instead gave us his robotic, canned, cliche football answers. Russ is always in press conference mode when talking football, and I think that's what drives people crazy. I also think that's just who he is. He's always on alert. Like when he bails out of a clean pocket for no reason. 41 minutes into the pod, Russ did give us one small window into his soul when he admitted the benching threat last season was tough for him.
Was it hard?
Yeah, it was hard.
Who did you lean on during that time?
I couldn't really go to anybody, really. It was more so I didn't talk to anybody about it, really, because I just had to keep it internal, just knowing that, you know what, I'm gonna still prepare the same way.
I empathize with that as much as I can for a guy who has $266 million in career earnings. The most honest thing Russ said was this.
You know, I think you have to have the ability to compartmentalize.
What you've shown?
Listen, it's a business. You gotta be also non-emotional about it, too, at the same time. You also know that there's ebbs and flows to it. You know, winning heals all wounds. To me, it's really focusing about being the best version of me, being prepared, and no matter what, you control what you can control.
The business for Russ right now is stand on his contract and guarantee himself that $80 million or whatever. Russ had the perfect head coach for him in Pete Carroll. The positivity vibes between those two were immaculate. They really could put the positivity in being HIV positive. And Russ has yet to acknowledge that he forced his way out of the most ideal situation he could be in. That's a tragic flaw that he may be blind to forever. An example to the contrary of honesty is when Marshall asks Russ about when he didn't take the high road, when he said or acted in a way that he regretted that wasn't positive.
I don't ever want to talk bad about people, nor do I ever want to tear people down.
So you Michelle Obama.
What you mean?
You know what she say, when they go low, you go high.
Yeah.
I'd be out there like, Russ, go low, bitch, go low. Go low, Russ.
Yeah, I just
Have you ever gone low in your life?
Nah, I just believe in
bro, you gotta give me one story where you gone low,
man,
bro.
I don't know if I got a story going low, but I just believe in.
It's like, Russ, dude, just tell us about when you fucked up so we can relate to you. Like if Russ just did this once, dear God, he would be goated forever.
You know, but number 72,
Michael Clemens.
Michael Clemens. Yeah, bitch boy.
I am begging you, channel your inner Dion Dawkins, Russell. I'm old enough to remember, Russ, when you talked about how much of a bully you were as a kid.
Man, I don't know if I got a story going low, but I just believe in uplifting each
Michelle,
other. Yeah,
forward.
I just believe in uplifting each other, man.
He's desperately trying to avoid harsh criticism, and in doing so brought more upon himself. It's why Pete Carroll isolated him in Seattle, right? That's what Marshawn Lynch alluded to, where all concerns regarding Russell Wilson or the offense had to go through Pete and could not be directly addressed with Russ. Russ murdered that inner bully and has kept that monster buried. And I would say 6 feet under, but it's probably more like 5'11" under the ground. Russ is too concerned with being remembered as an all-time great to actually act like one, which means being an alpha dick to get results sometimes. We've seen Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, pretty much all the greats get in dudes' faces. They all put their positivity aside in the name of winning. Specifically, when you mention Brady and Manning, nobody has ever called them anything but amazing teammates. Russell Wilson works just as hard as those guys ever did, and in always and only trying to say the right thing, he's received exponentially more criticism than those legends. And let's be real, when you're competing, sometimes another player needs to be checked by the leader. Do you know how many quarterbacks yelled at me telling me to get my shit together? Literally all of them, and I wasn't even on the team. Russ is too careful with his words. He denied that his house was for sale.
My house ain't for sale. You can't
Wait, what you talking about? I go on Instagram right now to say Russell Wilson's house is for sale.
Yeah, it's not for sale. It's not on the market right now.
Did you catch that? Like, he sort of corrected himself and said,
It's not on the market right now.
which is true. The reports are that he was having private showings for his home. Just be real with us, Russ. That's all we're asking. Say technically it's not for sale. We had a private showing because we need to have a plan in case I am not in Denver next season, which we'd all get. Or if it's not true at all, explain why that story was written. None of us trust the media, but I find it very hard to believe that every news station in Denver ran with the story about Russ getting ready to sell his house based on zero merit. Russ also said he wants to win 2 Super Bowls in the next 5 years, which maybe there would be a chance for in Denver if, again, he reworked his deal to help the team. Russ noted,
I didn't want to set a precedent for players to remove their injury guarantees.
another thing I actually agree with. Both parties have blood on their hands. The Broncos and Russ. Both could have handled things better behind the scenes. Russ is always going to perform well in front of cameras. The thing Russ doesn't get into, though, is how he could actually be a real team player by reworking his deal right now during the offseason, admitting that he did not play up to his contract would win him so much fan support. The problem that sticks out to me is Russ glosses over his struggles from last season. He mentions the Broncos' win streak.
Beat Kansas City, beat Buffalo on the road, Monday Night Football. Then we come back, play Sunday Night Football. We beat the Minnesota Vikings.
Which he was a big part of. All up to the point of when he got benched after the Patriots game.
When we lost to New England, because we were down to New England. We're down to New England, by 16 with a few minutes to go, a couple minutes to go. Go 2-minute drive, we go score, and then they ended up kicking a field goal.
He fails to admit in those final 4 must-win games that he started, he wasn't great. The only win was against a lifeless Chargers team where Justin Herbert got hurt. He talks about being a leader, but can't say my regret is if I played better after we fought our asses off to get back into the playoff race, I wouldn't have been benched. Stidham got the final 2 starts because the Broncos were essentially and then literally out of the playoffs. If Wilson was injured in one of those 2 meaningless games, the Broncos would be fucked, having to pay him for the next 2 seasons with no options. It was a business move forced by Russ's pedestrian play down the stretch. Russ threw a pick on 3rd and goal in the first quarter of that Patriots game after the defense gave him the ball inside the 10. Denver should have had a 14-0 lead in that game. Russ does not remember that part of the story, though. To me, the delusion for Russ is not seeing the flaws in his own game. It feels like he's scared to admit to his quarterback deficiencies because he believes it will take away from his previous accomplishments. He's great at not throwing his teammates under the bus publicly, but he's also very good at not throwing himself under the bus. He's great with the game on the line or leading a comeback, but he's also usually responsible for a late deficit. He can perform magic, but he can't consistently see the easy throws. He's a fucking enigma of the quarterback position. I've said it a dozen times, and the Broncos are not in a position to draft someone who can come in and be better than Russ, even with all of his flaws for the 2024 season. Worrying about the injury guarantee midseason by Denver was a massive gap. The best thing for Russ and for the Broncos, I believe, is convincing Wilson to come back to Denver. Because one thing that gets lost is that in these last 2 crazy seasons, Russ has earned the respect of the players in that Broncos locker room. He and Courtland Sutton, who is the only Bronco who knew about the benching threat, have undeniable chemistry on and off the field. Listen to how much Brandon Marshall was impacted by Russell Wilson as a leader and a teammate.
There comes a time where guys like you impact people like me and everybody else in the building. As a brother, as a friend, it's like I feel like wherever you go, you have that ability, and hopefully they have that mindset. Even if it's staying in Denver, it's like they have that mindset, but it's like, it's really you, bro. Like, you're special, and it's, again, giving you your flowers.
If/when Russ leaves, he has to establish that trust in a new locker room. And I don't think that's an easy thing for Russell Wilson to do. It took 1.5 years of hell for Russ to truly earn that with his offense in Denver.
It's easy to leave when everything's going your way.
Right.
But when it's not, do you change up? Do you not lead the same way? Do you not love the same way?
The reason he may be delusional is what I just alluded to. 1, he does not seem willing to rework his deal to help the Broncos go all in on a roster that can win it all, because right now they do not have that. 2, he does not understand what his limitations are as a player. Listen to him and Marshall talk about Russ playing through injuries.
I told your ass don't play through the lat. You tore your lat, bro. I told you don't play through it.
Again, I admire the mentality, but I think Russ believes he's unlimited. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning kept winning late in their careers because they knew what their limitations were. Marshall asked him when the game clicked for him, when he could see it the way Brady and Manning did at the line of scrimmage. And Wilson gave a good answer about when he realized he could hang with the talent level in the NFL, but he didn't say when he learned to see the field the way Manning and Brady did, because he doesn't. And not because he's 5'11", but simply because he doesn't and never will play the game like them. He's much closer to Brett Favre than those guys. There's no questioning Russell Wilson's dedication to the game, his commitment to trying to win, to set goals, to taking care of his body.
I'm dedicated to winning again. Dedicated to the process of winning again and all that. And I know what that looks like.
He wants to play 7 more years. That's ambition, and I respect it. He's very aware that he's in a part of his career where things are not going how he planned. However, I think the one thing Russ refuses to see is the hole in his game as a passer that he can no longer cover up by his superior athleticism. It can be covered up by a top 10 run game. It's literally that simple. The key for Russ is having the right offensive coordinator who finds the right mix of letting Russ cook and asking Russ to play it safe. Nathaniel Hackett had no structure. It was a disaster. Denver switched offensive coordinators, play callers multiple times. Russ played through injuries as well in 2022. But things clicked at the end of the season with head coach Jerry Rosberg and Justin Outen calling plays. Then Sean Payton came in, saw Russ's limitations immediately, and then limited him. Too much so. If he plays for an offense that can pick up first downs by handing off the ball with a solid defense, Russ can still be a difference maker in the postseason. I highlighted those red zone gaffes against the Patriots, but he was lights out in the red zone pretty much all season. I'd say he's still got a top 5 arm in the league as well. I've mentioned this before. Russell Wilson's box score is always misleading. When it's bad, he actually played better than the box score indicates. When it looks amazing, he usually could have played better. And I think that applies to Russ the man. He's never as bad as the criticism he faces, but his hands are never as clean as he wants us all to believe. I think Russell Wilson would be a great QB to have on your team with a rookie who is slated to sit for a year or two. Just listen to how Russ said he'd help 21-year-old JJ McCarthy if the Broncos drafted him.
Love them the way that he wants me to love them, and to raise them that way and to show up every day. I think our young boys need that for us to show up.
Okay, so maybe that was Russ talking about his own kids, but that's the energy I want for a raw, baby-faced rookie whose balls haven't dropped yet trying to survive in the NFL. Super Bowl 48 will feel like a preseason loss for Broncos fans if Russ does the most ruthless thing possible, which is play on the veteran minimum and win a Super Bowl while the Broncos are paying him top 5 QB money. And I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen to us. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. I swear to God, the last Russell Wilson video until we get actual news on where he goes next. Subscribe here. Come on, do it. Do it. Do it.